The following podcast is proudly brought to you by Vite Ramen. Use the link in the description and use offer code BROKENSILICON to get 10% off tasty, healthy, and easy to make ramen. And also use the offer code BROKENSILICON to get 25% off Windows keys and die shrink to get 3% off everything else on the website at cdkeyoffer.com. Now on with the show. Specifically. So some rumors are starting to come out just a little bit, and I want to be clear that I can't independently verify these ones myself. What I will say is what I'm about to say would not surprise me, and at the very least, I don't hear that NVIDIA's next generation is going to be some RDNA 3, RDNA 4, like multi-die thing yet. It sounds like it, most likely, even after Lovelace, but like Blackwell that comes out probably late next year, 2020, or would that be, or 2024, that's going to be another monolithic set of cards. But we know RDNA 3 is going to be multi-die, and for what I'm hearing, RDNA 4 is going to start getting pretty creative in its design. RDNA 4 near the end of next year is going to be pretty interesting. Already, I'm confident NVIDIA has designs for a 600-watt card, that they're definitely going to launch a 450-watt card. I don't think AMD is going to push it as hard unless it's an easy win for them. So you see NVIDIA on 4 nanometer with these massive dies competing with AMD with multi-die 5 nanometer and 6 nanometer things. And it seems like they're going to have to do that again next gen. And I don't think 3 nanometer will necessarily be ready either. That's another thing I have to throw into this conversation is I don't know that they can just brute force everything again, because I don't know that 3 nanometer will be ready near the end of next year for their die. Maybe it could be, but it's up in the air. Whereas AMD can just go to 4 nanometer and add more chiplets. Do you see this as like a huge potential headwind against NVIDIA? Maybe NVIDIA will compete directly this gen with worse efficiency, but if they have another gen where they don't have multiple dies and AMD has even more elaborate designs, is NVIDIA possibly in trouble here in a similar way to how Intel was? But of course, I'm not saying they'll make the same mistakes Intel does. I'm just saying, are they going to have to deal with some of the same issues that they don't have a multi-die approach? AMD's figured it out, and they're forced to just push power consumption on older nodes or something.
Everything has a limit of return to it, and you can just push a monolithic die so far to where the return just isn't there. You just can't get it, right? So it flattens out, and performance doesn't go up even though transistor count is. And with transistor count, power consumption, as you pointed out. Jensen made a comment at, I forget what event it was about 6 or 8 months ago. He was asked this question. It was an investors meeting, I think. And he was asked the same kind of question as, are you going to continue with monolithic or go to chiplets and so forth? And he pointed out that there are technological issues with chiplets with regard to communications. We discussed that and so forth. And there can be power issues as well. And he said, you get a much better performance if you can keep it all on one chip, which is, of course, obvious and true. He said, and we just happen to be very good at that. And that was the big takeaway I took from this whole rambling answer was we're good at making monolithic chips. And I think the facts speak for themselves. They are good at it.
So, but you also, it is interesting, and obviously we don't know for sure, but you also said there's only so hard you can push a chip before AMD just gets to win by default because they are throwing more silicon at the problem with chiplets, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's the law of diminishing returns. It's easy to Look. to predict that. Where that point is, I don't know, but I can guarantee you anything that I own that you want to bet, that NVIDIA has run those analyses, and they know where that point is, and they're not going to let it happen because it's a fool's play. It's just pouring money down the drain.
So I guess what you're saying is, yeah, you expect Blackwell to also be monolithic, but that it should just be good enough still. And then if the inception point is after that, that's when NVIDIA will have it ready or something.
Well, subject to what they can get out of the fab. If the process node drops, we're down, we're approaching 200 nanometers, and soon it'll be 100 angstroms, rather, soon 100 angstroms. If NVIDIA can keep their expertise in pace with the process node movement, which they have done successfully for 25 years, I might add. And by the way, I might point out that that's in Jensen's background. Then they don't have to. But as I mentioned, they know where that point is. They know that day is coming. These are supremo engineers.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think RDNA 3 is AMD's first well, RDNA 2 was almost a try for the crown, and it kind of was, but RDNA 3 is when I think they're really going to gun hard for it this fall. Like, they really are going to try to win. And if that doesn't happen, I'm just looking at extra headwinds and wondering how NVIDIA is going to respond. Blackwell, if it's not multi-chip, it's going to have to be pretty interesting then to compete with what RDNA 4 sounds like. Which kind of leads me into a final kind of set of questions here, if you're interested. Misha Jablonski writes, and he says, hello, Tom and John. I wonder if once we reach 4K around 200 hertz at the lower or mid-range level of graphics cards, what will be the next big thing to buy higher performance graphics? Will the future of rendering be fully path traced with ray tracing as it's implemented now, being only a stopgap? Greetings from Germany. And then Falto also writes in and says, will people care if mid-range GPUs can do 4K 240 hertz? And I think this is worth pointing out because I really do expect this generation from both companies to be a killer. Like killers. Like, I expect them they're going to double performance. And right now you've got mid-range cards that easily do like 1080p 240 hertz. So if we double performance now, then a year and a half we double it again, or even close to that, we're looking at stuff 4 to 5 times better than what we have now in 3 years. I know games get harder to run, but I don't think they're going to be 5 times harder to run, most likely, most of the time. Most of the games that will come out in 5 years, by the way, to everyone listening, were designed on current hardware, so they're not going to push it as hard as you might think.
Right.
Will people care if they can just max out 4K above even 200 frames a second with like a $600 card? Like, at what point does it get harder to start getting people to buy the new thing if everything they have just crushes it?
Yeah. No, it is a problem. I mean, you're absolutely right about that. I think what will happen is the consumers will have to be pushed, motivated to buy up on their displays. And I think that what the consumers need to get, this is John lecturing now, is they need to get super wide displays that are at least 4K. I'm looking at you right now on a super wide 5K scale, a screen. And the reason for that is you want it wide because it tickles your periphery. And what will happen is that the graphics boards will bring you more immersion. And they'll bring it to you in the form of audio, they'll bring it to you in the form of video. And the video will indeed be ray traced, and it will also be high dynamic range. And you will just, no exaggeration, I know it's going to sound silly, say you will just feel better. And the reason you will feel better is because your eyes and your brain are not going to be annoyed by artifacts. It's going to be fluidly smooth. It's going to be beautiful. You won't be able to measure it. You won't be able to point your finger at it and say, oh, look at that, how good that is. It'll just be there. It'll be realism. It'll be so realistic that your eyes and brains will accept it and you will feel better. And that's going to be difficult to convey in words. It's going
to be hard to market though, because I think right now and let's be clear, there are diminishing returns. Like, it is taking significantly more horsepower to push past 4K compared to over 1080p. And it is harder to tell the difference between well, I mean, this is such an understatement. It is definitely harder to tell the difference between 1080p and 4K than it is 480p or 540p and 1080p. That difference is just night and day obvious. 4K, some people say they can't tell the difference. I can. I think it's still obvious, but not as obvious.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at 8K displays, I do, which, 21:9 aspect ratio 5K is getting close-ish to this ultra resolution like tier. I don't know. I do wonder if some people will be extra hard to convince to push for the newest thing. I do wonder, though.
Well, I have gray hair and I've been around a while. And I remember when we had these conversations and people were asking me, well, why do we need color?
To be fair, though, you're an exceptional person, John. You're not the average guy. No, not to inflate your ego, but
No,
come on,
go
you're
ahead,
pretty.
please.
All right, let me go get the pump.
Okay, so I just think I think it's going to continue to get better. I think my fantasy is we have IMAX in our house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's totally in the cards, pun intended, in a few years. I mean, it's where it's going to have to go to even leverage that horsepower. I mean, honestly, I think so.
But it's a multifaceted problem. You have to do a better monitor. You have to do better speaker system, right? And you have to do the better graphics. And then, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a Ferrari, except that there's no gas station around? So I'm just sitting in it because I can't get any fuel for it. Well, the fuel is the game.
Yeah.
And that's always been a problem, is that the hardware has been so far ahead of the damn games, right? And so we're going to get all this stuff, right? Whether we want it or not, we're going to get it. And then we're going to tap our toes and wait for the games to catch up.
That's what I was going to say, too, because developers will find something to do with this. They'll say, oh, okay, well, now I'll do this. They'll find a way to use the performance. I do think, though, in a few years, there will be this thing where it's like they're going to have to catch up, though. They're going to have to catch up in 3 years.
No, they have to do more than catch up. They have to get ahead. The problem with the game developers is this goddamn chicken and egg situation, is that NVIDIA and AMD go out there and they say, look, we're going to have mesh shaders. Look what we can do with mesh shaders. And the game developers go, well, what's the installed base? There's no installed base, you idiot. You're supposed to make the installed base. So the game developers...
I talked to a lot of game developers. They would say, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to make the install base, sir, and we're supposed to build on it when you do.
Well, and that's the problem. So they're always followers rather than leaders. It wasn't always that way. It used to be...
It wasn't. There were... Some people that tried crazy things ahead of time that would take like 3 3090s and say, hey, it's what we're building the game to run on.
I can remember having conversations with the guys at NVIDIA, and they're saying, Jesus Christ, we can't make this game run. Right? It's like, well, you better. And now it's just the opposite.
Yeah, it is. I think some developers have gotten happy, though, with the market share they have access to for a given level of gameplay. They're like, once you're stronger than a PS4, isn't that hard to do anymore? We can have 1 billion gamers on our game, which I think some of them may need to accept. 1 billion gamers aren't going to buy your game, dude. But maybe you'll get 10 million too, though, if you push the technology, the people who actually have the best stuff. But I do think that's the thing now, is it's like, before you really had to push graphics and technology to make a new type of gameplay, and now you don't necessarily have to. Now, that's an uncreative answer, because some people would say, well, that's your job to come up with things to do with it. But
yeah, no, I think the game developers have worked. The thing that encourages me, and you probably have seen this, the epic demo of Nanite.
Yeah.
Right? that I mean, I get giddy about that. I think that is so damn exciting because
Well, and what's exciting about it is, from what I hear, it's supposed to make it easier.
because
Well,
that I mean, I get giddy about that demo of Nanite.
yeah.
And you probably have seen this, the epic demo of Nanite.
Yeah.
Right? And you probably have seen this, the epic demo of Nanite.
Yeah.
Right? That I mean, I get giddy about that. I think that is so damn exciting because
Well, and what's exciting about it is, from what I hear, it's supposed to make it easier to program too and
yeah,
scale
yeah.
across.
Well, I mean,
So,
it's mesh shaders taken to their logical. I wouldn't say conclusion. It's mesh shaders exploited properly. Combination of mesh shaders, dynamic lighting, great physics, terrific physics, and not only great physics but also great sound. When those rocks are falling as she's walking through there, and that sound reverberates around, and if you've got a good sound system set up when that's going on, it's this immersion thing I'm talking about. It's a totally different feeling.
yeah, and I think we'll see the first games really use that effectively, probably late next year, maybe a couple this year. We'll see. That'll be and hey, those will be running on graphics cards at least twice as strong as what we have now. So
Yeah,
that's going to
yeah,
be fun.
yep.
All right. We've gone through the main discussion points I wanted to. You said you'd have a certain amount of time. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss that was on the discussion list, or anything you wanted to talk about before I let you go?
Well, I don't know how many of the people who are allegedly listening to this have ever seen your videos, but I think that they could turn the sound off and just watch your roof.
Just watch my
Because Tom. Some has an RGB roof.
Well, it was something I literally stumbled into when I lived in my previous. I live in Nashville now. I used to live in Peoria, and I was just like, I actually had a globe behind me that I could change the
I
color
remember
on.
that. I remember the globe.
And then I was like, oh, wait, I could do that with lights. And then if I'm talking about AMD, it turns red. And then as people are skipping half of what I frickin' say and misquoting me on Twitter, maybe this will at least get their attention to notice the NVIDIA portion if they want to listen to that, the AMD portion, at least that's the idea. But yeah. Yeah, I know. So I'm definitely a super gamer because I have RGB everywhere for sure.
So now you got to do something with that microphone, make that RGB.
I feel like that would mess with the camera's focus, but it is a pretty expensive one, so maybe not. Or I could just put on like the suit the guy who plays Golem in Lord of the Rings wears, except it lights up too, and then everyone would know I'm a truly professional gamer.
Okay.
All right. Well, enough of I'll let you go then. I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank everybody for listening. Remember to subscribe to Moore's Law is Dead on YouTube, subscribe to Broken Silicon on Apple Podcasts, and give us a review. Tell your friends about us. Support us on Patreon. If you have the money, you can ask us questions.
A vat kur galima įpirauti. Служи! Это... Мне